Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Google Pixel 9a and compare it against the iPhone 16 and see how both of these phones kind of compare against one another. Now, here's the thing. When it definitely comes down to both these phones, I'm a big fan of both of them. I think they're both very good options. But, it's funny because they both kind of flip-flop here and there. So let's go and see how both of them compare. If you want to pick up either one of these phones though, links will be down in the description below. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these particular phones. The iPhone 16, which came out a little bit later last year, on the front side of this particular phone is going to be giving you a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, this type of display and this type of panel really isn't too bad. It's going to be a fairly high resolution, it's going to be higher resolution than the Google Pixel 9a, but also the interesting thing is that you are getting a 2000 nits of brightness display on here. It's giving you the dynamic island at the very top, which is always nice to have. And I do think if you are going to go through and pick up a device, you're actually going to be getting a pretty decent experience from this type of phone, right? Both these phones are going to be giving you pretty solid experiences. Is there one that is like way better than the other one? I'm not really too sure, but at least with the iPhone 16, you're still getting a really nice, good, clean panel for the most part. And there really isn't anything super insane to kind of think about here because it is still a fairly good phone, but it isn't a 120Hz display. It's only a 60Hz display, which that is a really big disadvantage, I would say, if you're going to go through and pick up a device. But I would probably say otherwise, this is still a good phone and you're still going to be getting a really decent experience from this type of device. I just wish it had a 120Hz display. The Pixel 9, on the other hand, or the 9a, is going to be giving you a 6.3-inch P OLED display. So this one's going to be slightly ever so different. The really big thing to keep in mind here within this type of device is that you're actually going to be going through and basically getting a 2700 nits of brightness display inside of this phone. That is in and of itself a really big advantage of going through and getting one of these types of devices because you're able to go through and get a device like this that's not only giving you 120 Hz, but it's also going to be giving you a very solid experience when it comes out of that type of device. So it's not only a brighter panel, but also getting that higher refresh rate is another really cool thing going on for these types of devices too. And I'm a massive fan of these types of devices when it comes down to it. So I do think that in and of itself is another really cool thing going on for these types of phones too. On top of that, with these types of devices, you're also going to be going through and getting USB Type-C ports at the bottom. So that's always something nice to basically have there. You're also basically going to be able to go through and get some other things inside of these phones too, like these, flat sides, which is still very nice. You're going to be going through and getting these backs, dual camera setups on the back of both of these. But the Pixel 9a is giving you a frosted plastic back, where the the iPhone 16 is going to be giving you this frosted, glass back. So that right there is going to be slightly different because it is going to probably make more sense for you to go through and buy something like a, iPhone 16 because it is going to feel more premium. So that is going to be a pretty big disadvantage there. So kind of keep that in mind. If you are wanting the device that is going to be giving you a better experience, that one might be the one that you would look at, as probably hitting that particular box. But I would still say for the most part, if you are going to go through and pick up a device, you're still going to be getting a decent experience when it comes down to, the build quality and everything like that between both these devices. So at least from that perspective, that kind of covers it up there too. Now, on top of that, when it comes down to their price tags, right now the iPhone 16 costs about $570 on Amazon, but it's about $799 brand new. The Pixel 9a costs about $499. So because that phone just came out, you're pretty much stuck in a situation where it's going to be costing around that price tag. So kind of keep that in mind. I do think though, for the most part, if you are about to go through and pick up some sort of devices, I really do think you cannot really go wrong with those types of phones. Those are very solid devices. I do like those phones a lot. So price tag wise, they kind of hold up well. On top of that, when it kind of comes down to their software longevity, their cameras, like I said before, they're both giving you dual camera setups on the backside. And their megapixel count is relatively around the same. It's really not even that big of a difference here, which is kind of surprising. So at least when it comes down to that area, they're both giving you 48 megapixel wide angle lenses and 12 megapixel ultra wide on the iPhone 16, 13 megapixel ultra wide on the Pixel 9a. So that right there is going to be another pretty big, advantage here between both, because you're going to look at something like the Pixel 9a and you might think that one is better because it is giving you more cameras. But the big thing you're going to have to keep in mind here, as far as we can tell, is that with the Pixel 9a, that type of camera, it's giving you 4K at 60 on the back and then 4K at 30 on the front. which is kind of a disadvantage here. Whereas on something like the the iPhone 16, that one's going to be giving you a little bit of a better layout. That one's going to be giving you 4K at 60 on the front and the back. So from that side in and of itself, I would probably say that something like the Google Pixel 9a camera, it's still going to be great, but the iPhone 16 is probably going to be the one that makes the most amount of sense for me in my personal opinion. So from that side, that kind of covers it out there too. Now, on top of that, when it also comes down to software longevity, this is another really important thing to keep in mind here as well. So when it comes down to this side, the iPhone 16 is basically still supported with software, and the Pixel 9a is also still supported with software. So both these phones are still going to be supported with software for a long period of time now. There's not really that much to complain about here when it comes down to that side, because they're both going to be giving you software updates. So I wouldn't really have to worry about which one's going to be the longer lasting one, because both of them are going to be lasting for a long period of time. And there really isn't that much to complain about here when it comes down to both of these devices. So from that side in and of itself, I will tell you, they both hold up really, really well. When it also comes down to their batteries, the iPhone 16 is going to be giving you a 3,561 mAh battery, with the Pixel 9a is giving you a 5,100 mAh battery. I'm about to do a battery test, but from a high level point of view, I would probably assume that both are going to be performing fairly well. There's a chance the Pixel 9a might edge out the iPhone 16 just by a little bit, but it wouldn't be like a massive amount, but it would just be one of those other things to keep in mind there when it comes down to these two devices. So finally, with the performance, the iPhone 16 is going to be giving you the Apple A18 chipset inside with 8 gigs of RAM, where the Pixel 9a is giving you the Tensor G4 chipset inside with 8 gigs of RAM. So that right there is another really big thing to keep in mind here too. Because if you're going to go through and pick up both these devices, I do think these two phones are fairly solid experiences. And I'm not really too sure which one is going to be the fastest one of all time. I'm sure the iPhone 16, I've always liked the A series of chipsets from Apple more so than the Tensor chipsets from Google. But with that being said, one big thing to keep in mind here is that at least with the Google Pixel 9a, that phone is giving you a 120Hz display, which makes that phone feel and perform so much better. So I feel like it just makes that phone feel so much faster. It makes it feel really good. And I think that is a really big advantage for something like a Google Pixel 9a when it kind of comes down to it. So in my personal opinion, right, if I'm looking at both these phones, I probably will tell you both these devices are very decent for the most part, right? I think both these devices make a lot of sense to go and buy. I think the Pixel 9a has more flagship features inside of it. Things like the 120Hz display and the brighter display, make this phone perform and feel that much better. On top of that, because that phone is also going through and because it is basically giving you this type of other experience, like basically when it comes down to its, other areas, that phone is very nice. I do like that phone a lot, and it makes a lot of sense to go and buy that type of device. Whereas I feel like with something like the Google Pixel 9a, this type of phone, it's great, but I feel like the iPhone 16 might be better for some people too. So it really just depends on your use case. But in terms of that, that's kind of how I see these types of devices holding up and comparing what's in it, against each other. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.